Okay, what I'm going to do now is show you. I've got a weasel caught today. We're in Maine, and it's November 12th. Caught him last night, and you can see where he's starting to go to being all white, but still got some brown on the top here that hasn't quite turned to white yet. And during the winter, they'll be all white. And the only thing that'll change is they'll still have a black tail. And that's it. So these are pretty basic to skin out. Not really a lot to it. Not really a lot of things to be, um, cautious of. The tails can be a little finicky. But other than that, it's pretty basic animal to skin. The only tough part about it might be just that it's small. This would be very similar to a small mink, or I guess if you were skinning out a squirrel. Basically, all you need is I've got this is a buck knife, and I've skinned an awful lot of animals with this knife. Works very well. I almost, on a smaller animal like this, would like to have a smaller or finer pointed knife. Smaller blade. It's a little easier to get in to start them up, but this one, it shouldn't be too bad. You can dry them on a wire stretcher or a wooden stretcher. I prefer, on animals like this, a wooden stretcher, and I actually made this. This is nothing fancy. It's just a thin half-inch piece of pine that was rounded over and tapered. And it works out quite nice because you'll see later on I can take push pins or small tacks and tack the hide right to this and get a bunch of different attachment points. You really can't do that when you use the wire stretchers. You have to use just the standard hooks, and it can be kind of a pain, at least for some of the smaller animals. But so I'll get started. Basically, you want to start by making your first cut. I usually go right along where would be the Achilles tendon, and I'll go in there, and basically you want to go right towards the base of his tail, just like that. Take this side, do the same thing. Start it. Okay, now use your fingers a lot to really do a bulk of the job, but sometimes just getting it started, it's nice to use your knife just to get it to start going, coming off the hide. Also trying to do this so that you can see it as well. On the feet, I usually go about to what would be the ankle, and nothing really specific about it. Just kind of cut around foot. Okay. Now once you get them going, you can see you can basically just pull all that off. Less cutting the better. Now right here at the base of the tail, just basically want to go through here, cut across. Separate that out. And then I like to basically take my knife and slice the tail and to get the tailbone out. And right here, just going to get started a little bit. You can just basically peel that off where I've got it cut. And two things you can use. This is a tail puller. You can just basically get this down, and what happens is you get the tailbone, you put it in there, and you pull this off. A lot of times, for whatever reason, you'll get the whole bone out, but unfortunately, usually, a lot of times the tip of it will come off. Try to demonstrate. Just put that on the tailbone, lock it down, and I'm basically just taking the tail in with this hand and pulling apart, and it'll just take the tailbone out from inside the tail. Now that one worked perfect. If you try going too fast, a lot of times you get in trouble and you'll pop the end of the tail off. And then you can take and just split the tail. It just helps it for drying. A lot of these little guys, it doesn't even really matter. There's not enough. That's about it. So now that's all split. That'll dry fine. So now you can basically take your fingers and just work this right down. There'll be a few spots where you might have to take a knife and help it out a little bit. But for the most part, you can just about peel this right off. I'll have to cut a little more here on the front. This is a male. Those glands right there, definitely a good idea to stay away from if you can. They have a musk gland that's very similar to like mink, and everybody hits them. Once you do, you definitely try to not hit them again on the next one. Just make sure when you get down here that you get the hands down in there. Keep pulling it down over. Now, when you get to this point, you can start to move this hide right off of the one of the arms, front legs. Get it like that. I should take my fingers, get my thumb, get it right in there, and you can just pull this right off. Get it that far is far enough. Just cut it off. The other side, same thing. Just work the hide back. Get your fingers in there. Pull it out. Now, on the home stretch, next thing coming is going to be his ears. And I'm just kind of pinching and squeezing here. Okay, now just about at the ears. So, instead of cutting this way, you usually want to cut back or straight in, and further back the better to start. It's real easy to make a big ear opening cut it. If you cut where it looks like you should be cutting versus where you really should be cutting. See, like on this one, I'm getting it right down just at the ear canal. Normally when you're skinning, you're following this line here around and around and around. If you did that here and you cut it, you'd end up with quite a big hole there at the ear. So just right ahead of this, where that blood vessel is, right in there, cut straight down in, and there's the ear canal. So that's a pretty easy mistake that a lot of people might make at first. And it's not the end of the world, but it helps to make nicer pelts. These guys got pretty big ears, so. On the head is where you definitely will start using a little more knife work. The ears, the eyes, and so everything's kind of stuck on a little bit more on the head. Get into his eyes here in a minute. His eyes right here. So these aren't too bad, but you can see where you can just take your time and just keep releasing a little bit at a time. Even if you get in a pinch, you can kind of go to a different spot, come back to it. Where's his eyes coming out there? Now, this is another, usually a lot of times, I'm going to get close up, right on the eye, basically like where his tear duct would be, some people might start trying to cut here. And if you do, you're just going to keep stretching that eye opening up. You need to get in front of it and cut down in, and then it'll release. It's another, just like the ear, it's another little spot there that give you some trouble. So here's the other side. His eye is right here. So I'm going to start a little further back, just cutting easy. A little bit of pressure on. Here's that spot again right there. Just kind of come in behind it. There you go. And that's jaw. Main thing is just take your time. I'm definitely going a lot slower now just to kind of make a video where people can at least see how this happens or how you should do it. But certainly you can build up speed and get going right along. If you had a whole bunch of these or a bunch of animals, then obviously you gotta try to make some time. Okay, same thing with the nose. Another spot where a lot of people might make a mistake and cut this way. I always cut back into the animal that I'm skinning so that you take the whole nose off other than making a big hole. So I'm cutting back at the animal, and that way there you get the whole nose and you don't make a really big hole, and you keep his lips and everything all intact. Definitely, I mean, this is not a high valued item, animal, but you know, you caught him. You want to definitely make the most out of what you've got and take a little pride. And that's it. So here's a weasel skun out. There's not a lot of fat on these at all, just a little bit to clean up, and that's it. Be some bait. How this goes on the board, basically leave these inside out, slide them down onto the board here. This weasel's a little bit small for this stretcher, but it'll work. A little narrower would be better. In fact, I may end up putting him onto a wire stretcher, but basically I'll go over some of the spots. This part right here, on mink, weasels, it's called a saddle, and basically you don't have to worry about getting all that off. I usually just go around the armpits, try to get some of the heavy pieces of meat off. Down by the tail here, there's not much of anything. Just in the belly, there's a little bit of fat right here. That'll come off real easy. The head, everything else is all fine. Don't even need to worry about any of that stuff. That'll all dry nice, and that's about it. If I was leaving this guy on this board, which I may end up doing, what I usually do is I try to get the head down, get the eyes and everything all even, and right through his nose, right in the very tip of this stretcher, just put a nail in there. That holds his head on there good. If the arms are really, really long, they don't need to be. I may take my knife and just kind of trim them back a little bit, because you don't want them to do that where they're just kind of laying down. It'll make a bad spot right in the armpit where it's drying. So as long as they'll stand up, they'll be fine. Around the base, take where the two legs were. Those are going to be your points down here. These also get a pin or a nail. Same thing on this side. Stretch them down like that. Pin that off. Take the tail. Usually go right at the base of the tail. Put a nail right there, push pin. Take the tail itself, bring that all the way down. Put a pin in that. And if you start seeing where there's an area where it's going to roll over, like there, I pull that back, put another little pin there. That's about it. That's skinning a weasel.